The conversation you are about to hear was recorded in 2020 during the height of the global pandemic. And now, Global Comedy Studios presents, Is This a Bad Time to Talk?
All right, I'm calling my friend Richard Kind again to see if his headset is working. Richard Kind, there we are. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Richard Kind, this is Ali. Is this a bad time to talk?
Of course it is, Ali. So ask me whatever you want.
The show's also called AKA I'm Here to Listen. Now it's what is it? April 30th, Thursday, 2020, around 1:30. If nothing else, Richard, I've given you the time and date, which used to mean something back in the day.
And you want to know something right now? This could be Tuesday, August 2087. It doesn't matter. Nothing is mattering anymore as far as time. I'm just, you know what?
Richard,
you know what the only time that matters is? Are we talking now? Are we being recorded?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I have to inform you. This phone call is being recorded for a potential podcast. Are you cool with that?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Are you okay with this potentially? What?
Yes, the only time that time matters is when I say I really have to do my workout today, because I can procrastinate playing word games on my phone, reading a book, saying, okay, now I'm going to do. I just have to take that half hour to an hour and say, you must work out. You don't want to, and you know you must. And then nothing else matters.
And are you listening to a podcast? I mean, where am I finding you right now? Are you in New York City or Los Angeles?
I'll tell you an interesting thing. When I came back, this is the story, so I hope this is interesting. I came back from LA on March 13th. That's the day I took the flight. I had been in LA. I had been at a charity golf event where I must have been around 2,000 people for the whole weekend. Then I come back to LA from the golf tournament. That was in Palm Springs. And do an episode of TV where I'm with 150 people on set. And then I take an airplane flight. And I figure if anybody has this virus, it's got to be me. So I say, I'm going to sequester myself, self-quarantine, in New York. My wife and my girls, I have 3 children. 2 of them are girls. They're here in Margate, New Jersey, where we have a very modest little beach house, about a 7-minute walk to the beach. And my son went with his best friend to Southampton, where he is at Camp Coronavirus. He's playing basketball. He's having a great time. He misses us, but he's having a good time. And I was for 7 weeks, in the apartment in New York. And then Dana had the car. She came back. She stayed at the apartment. I drove back to Margate. And that's where I am now. So I am on the Jersey Shore. And it just doesn't make a difference because it's freezing. The shore is closed, but we go out and we take walks on it. But I think it'll be closed.
Wow. 7 weeks you were by yourself in New York City in your
by
apartment.
Myself, yeah. Yeah, I really was. And it's quite something. I tend sometimes to talk in these not bon mots, but these little adages. And somebody wrote early on, if our grandparents could fight on the battlefield and give their lives in the trenches of the world wars, we can sit on our couch for 3 months. It's not that horrible. It's awful, but it ain't that horrible. People went away for 2, 3, 4 years, training, giving up their lives, fighting, starving, doing horror, seeing friends die in front of them. It's not as bad for us. So we don't have to liberate Wisconsin and Michigan. Can I curse?
Please.
Yeah, of course I can. Sit on your fucking couch. Sit on your ass. Catch up on Mad Men or Game of Thrones. Read some books. Read why our president is not doing the job he should. Listen to Governor Cuomo. See a humane person talk to humans. That's what you do for 3 or 4 months. How bad could it so awful be? And that's what I have to say. Is it time to go? Okay.
Yes, that's it. It's a 4-minute conversation.
Ali, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you teaching classes online?
I'm teaching my first writing for SNL class tonight. We're doing some online classes through the Pit. And I just, I've got the 4 bricks and mortar spaces, so we're waiting to find out. Apparently the landlords haven't got the memo that we're all in this together. So I'm still waiting to hear what's going to happen.
Right. We are all in this together, and we're starving. We don't have income. And we'd love for you to have income, but we don't have any money to give you. So for the while, you take a cut. I bet you have more in your safe, what's the word, salvos. You have something to fall back on much more than the average guy.
Yeah.
And however, when we all come out of this, their property will be diminished considerably, and I bet there will be a lot of renegotiating for price that you are going to pay. For instance, if you rent a place for a certain amount of money, you may say, you know what, give me a 30% cut and put this on the market again because you're not going to get anything. You're just not. The people aren't going to be coming to New York.
The challenge with landlords is it's playing big stack poker. They have big stack. They can wait it out longer. They get more benefits for not renting. It's just you're playing at a table where you've got 2-5, 5-10 no limit, and they're playing at a table 50-100 whatever. That's a good analogy. But like I said, they have a stockpile. They have a stockpile of cash. They can wait it out. But I think that they're going to see. I think they're going to know. I really do. And maybe they can wait it out for the 2 or 3 years until everything comes back onto their feet. God knows they've done it with independent storefronts before this ever happened. And, they're waiting for that mom and pop store to be demolished so that they can put up a large apartment building. I'm talking about the Upper West Side. And you're right. They got big stacks. We do not, and ours are decreasing by the day. Tough. I have to remind myself that I'm one of the lucky ones. It's very easy to get
Ali,
down.
you have to. And I think
keep saying.
Yes, I agree with you. And you want to know something crazy? And this really is the mind of a neurotic actor, of a guy who just is neurotic about a lot of things. I worry about money. Where's it going to come from? What am I going to do? And I know that I am taken care of. That's part one. Part two is, now that everybody's in the same boat, I'm not so worried anymore. Others are suffering with me. Others are worrying about money, as am I. And I'm fine. I'm so much healthier with money because I know that everybody is on the same footing. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's looking for silver linings and, in a way, finding ways to connect ourselves with global humanity. And it's one of the only times it's ever like, 9/11 was New York and the world, sympathized with New York. But this is everybody around the world.
This is everybody.
It is going
everybody. Although I got to tell you, I read a phenomenal op-ed piece from a guy in the Irish Times. I'll send it to you. It's beautiful in how it lays out that everyone in the world used to be jealous of America. They wanted to be American. They saw the land of plenty. And right now, we are figures of pity. They pity us. They pity our government. They pity our president. They pity our red and blue states, the divisiveness. And they're right. I think we are to be pitied. We were great. And right now, we are not. Our democracy is under attack, and I worry. I worry because we are the best system in the world, and I don't know whether or not we are living up to our potential. I just don't.
Is
this a comedy podcast, by the way?
Let me tell you what this is. Let me tell you what this is, all right? This is a phone call. It's a phone call to a friend. Mm-hmm. Because, this podcast, whatever you want to call it, because I still haven't figured out how to post them yet, was just something born out of, I've got to do something. So I said, let me just go through my phone and call people I've always wanted to talk to and other people may want to hear and see if they'll talk to me. And I've talked to Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall.
Whoa.
I talked to Janine Garofalo. I talked to Reed Birney. I'm talking to Michael Shannon tomorrow, the great actor Michael Shannon. I said, I saw your number. I was like, let me see if Richard has time.
Oh, Ali, first of all, another thing that this pandemic, if you're going to say, let's make take a pimple and make it a beauty mark. When I was growing up, I would come home from school and do my homework, and then I would get on the phone for hours, and I would talk to friends. I never texted, never emailed because we didn't have them. We talked. I love getting back on the phone. I love it.
May I tell you something?
I think this is great. Yeah. But
I'm talking to you on a handheld phone, an old-timey receiver I plug into my cell phone to bring back that feeling to me. Because I too loved, like, the phone was the thing that connected me to people. And I used to love listening to Larry King late at night, my clock radio. And it was just
right.
These are the things I liked before I got into this Michigas. And I'm going back to, what did I like? I liked talking to people, but more importantly, I liked listening to people. You know, I liked photography. I liked playing. I liked taking walks. I liked the outdoors. And I'm kind of, because for me, I could lose it all. Off the story about the Irish story you were telling, there's a great movie called The Field with Richard Harris. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Sure.
But
I've never seen it, but I know it.
In the film, he has this field, and the widow owns the field. And one day the widow wants to sell the field. And he says, you can't sell that field. That's my field. And she screams, it was never your field. You know, so it's a good movie for tenants to watch if you have landlords, because you can get lulled into the sense that it's yours. And the reality is it's never yours. But so this thing is really a thing where it's like, I want to listen to people. I want to, hear their journey of how they got to here, the little bifurcation points of who, guided them, who was like somebody who, championed them. Hopefully come up with some win-win idea for them where they're like, okay, I wouldn't have had that idea if I hadn't talked to him. And that's the long and short of it, It's a phone conversation. And when I was younger, you had to pull the phone as far as you could away from the kitchen.
Right.
I don't know where it was in your house.
Well, it certainly was. And then when I got older, my sister and I had a phone line, and we used to argue about who has the phone for the phone time. But we had our own phone line because we would tie up our parents' phone. But yeah, we had the long cord that got tangled up in everything from the kitchen, and then my parents had one in their room. So but we got tired of using those, so they got us. That was it was almost like getting a car, Nowadays, they get a phone in third grade. That's their phone. That was way too early. We did everything we could to keep a cell phone away from our kids. Everything, and I still try. In these times, it would be ridiculous because this is the outside world is their phone, But it's what we tried to do. My son playing the games. It's what they do. Anyway, I will say one other thing. I'll say one other thing. How much do you love Zoom?
Yeah.
I love it.
Zoom has come out of nowhere. This thing, I mean, God, I wish if I had a time machine to go back and buy Zoom stock.
I thought the same thing after my second or third Zoom conversation. Yes, I did. And I hear that it's been around for a while. I never knew it. I'd never heard of it. Well, now it's essential.
It's funny how certain things are killing it right now. Grocery stores, liquor stores, Papa John's, and Zoom. Certain things during this pandemic it's boom time.
Yes. Well, it's now the time also to wish that you lived in Los Angeles, which is something I never wished for. But they pride themselves on a community that does not interact so much. They are car culture. We are on top of each other. We used to love having to interact and bump into people and having to get on the subway and interact and see all of humanity in one big metal car. Now, that is the enemy. And it's a shame. It's a shame.
I mean, I don't know what the world's going to look like when this is all done in terms of what we do, in terms of whether it's theater or sets or, bars.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know either. It will all come back. I really do believe that. I hope we're around for it. I think it'll take 3 years. I do. I think it'll take over 3 years. And you know what? I heard rumors. How do we know that a vaccine will ever be created? If you can't cure the common cold, if you can't cure a flu, you can give a vaccine and pray that you don't get the flu. Who knows? Who knows if this can be prevented securely? I don't know. But it's really something.
Really something. If
if
it weren't for this, I wouldn't. I don't. Look, we know each other from cards, from Second City, from and I don't know if during those times.
I hardly knew you from Second City.
Right, I'm saying.
You mentioned that you're one of my favorite people, and I only know you from cards.
Right.
I really didn't know you from Second City. You probably saw me, but I didn't see you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And at the 50th anniversary, I think at the 50th anniversary of Second City, at that point, we knew each other. Yes.
Really? Okay.
Maybe not.
All
maybe.
Right.
But cards is where I met you.
You couldn't help my career. I don't think I would have talked to you.
Right.
Yeah,
no,
but
I believe
you're right. It's a cards that we really got to know each other. Yeah.
But I don't know if I would have said, "Hey, Richard, would you do my?" I guess this is a podcast. In the BC time before Corona, because I would have felt like he's busy. I don't want to encumber him, and then I would have gotten my own way because I would have wanted to be perfect. And when this is heard, it's going to sound like a phone call. So it's only in the AC world where I'm like, let me just text Richard and see if he's willing to talk to me. Because I mean, look, at the end of the day, you're, to me, comedy royalty. I mean, Second City, Carol Burnett Show, Mad About You. I mean, all the things you did. I mean, a character actor for the ages. And sometimes I sit at cards and I try to forget that you're Richard Kind. It's not possible, but,
it is so funny to hear you say that because you are an outsized personality and an outsized ego. And to hear you talk like that, it just kills me. First of all, I never think of anybody like that because I'm the guy I am with the insecurities that I have. I have an enormous ego with utter insecurity. But sugar, what was I going to say? I was going to say something. You talk about that. Here's what I was going to say is I got to be honest. I do anything. Somebody wants me for a podcast. Yeah, of course I'll do it. Somebody needs me to do 2 lines in a movie. Somebody needs me to do this thing for what they're putting out in some song that's the coronavirus. Yes, of course I'll do it. I'll do what I say. Yes, everything. Especially now, what the hell am I doing with my days? I'm doing nothing. You, I happen to like. You, I happen to admire, and I delight in talking to you. I think you're just a smart man. I love talking to you. So, although this seems like a big deal, it is not, because I'm happy to do this. And to be honest, even if I didn't like you, I would probably do it anyway. So what does that mean? I don't know, but it's true. And I happen to like you very much. I think you're great.
Likewise.
I think that your school is fantastic. I really hope that all survives this horror, because I think it's a great place. I like the physical space. I like what you do. I've been there. I've been at the bar. There's a community there that you try, and I know first and foremost it's a business for you, but I really do believe that you try and cultivate a culture where everybody can help each other and learn from each other. I think it's great. I do.
I thank you for saying that. And for me, it's like, because I grew up here, I came here when I was 9 months old, and the rest of my family is in Iran. I've always found that there are people in my life who I've like, oh, you would be my uncle. You would be my aunt. You would be my, cousin. And so someone like you, I've always, had this kind of, I don't know why, an older brother avuncular feel towards you, where it's almost like Uncle Richard. Yeah, I mean, again, it's like, because you're someone who I watched. I watched the Carol Burnett Show. I watched Mad About You. I watched Spin City. So to all of a sudden you're sitting at a table, it's hard to distance that. Little by little we've gotten to know each other, and we can talk like this. But, and I don't ever look anybody up, but like yesterday I was like, well, let me look up Richard on Wikipedia, and so when we talk, I'll have things to ask or talk about. And it's the amount of work that you've done.
I will admit that. It is
unbelievable. And it's like, and the pedigree.
I call myself the Costco of acting. I come in bulk and I come cheap.
But I mean, the pedigree of all the shows, the Coen brothers, I mean, all that stuff.
You're right.
Lincoln Center, the Kennedy Honors.
Yeah.
But so let me ask you, I mean, when did you know did you come from a funny family? When did you know when you were younger you wanted to be in front of people and learn lines and sing? Stuff like that is the thing. I'm always interested in the bifurcation points, the moments along people's lives where I met this person, they told me about this class.
Okay, I can tell you, and I know this particular story very well, but the thing is that because I'm talking to you, I got to tell you, my dad was very much a man like you. He was, I mean, you're being very coy and lovely and charming about saying, oh, I'm nervous about calling him. My dad had your chutzpah. My dad had your energy. He dealt in puns, which is a horrible form of humor, but that is what he was like. And he was beloved by people. He owned a jewelry store in Princeton, and he could sell ice to the Eskimos. He was just a great salesman, but what he was selling was of such high quality that it wasn't difficult to sell it, because jewelry is always a good thing. You never buy jewelry for a sad occasion. So it was a great thing to have. And he was in a town, Princeton, New Jersey, right on Nassau Street, which is the main thoroughfare. Everybody knows Nassau Street, across from the university. And it's a very waspy town. And my dad was a 6'4" Jewish guy who, when he was not in Princeton, was with his friends who were primarily Jewish. But his business was primarily not Jewish. And his competition was New York, Tiffany's, Cartier's, because people in Princeton would either go to my dad or they would go to New York. And my dad had everything that New York had, or he could get it. So he was a real great man of the people, and he was beloved in the town. And I think I got that from my dad. I wanted to be liked, if not loved. One way of doing that is getting on stage and getting applause, because applause is another word, and you can never get enough of it. So that's where my ambition comes. I always wanted to be an actor. I was supposed to take over my dad's store, and his best friend said, if you want to be an actor, try acting, because when you're 40, you're going to kick yourself that you never tried. And I was pretty good. You want to know something? I really wasn't pretty good, but I really loved it. It took me 20 years to become any good, but I did go into acting, and I was successful. After about 5 or 6 years, I became successful. And Second City, part of that success. And then going to LA, it all worked out. Gosh, I was going to say one thing, and I can't remember. Oh, I know, is I did have a love of the theater and of showbiz. My mom watched old movies. I love movies. I try and get my kids to watch old movies, and all they go is, oh, black and white. Oh, yeah, I know movies. I know most movies before 1980. That's what I know, which is why I say I know the field. I don't know the technicalities of movies, but I know the trivia of movies. But I did know Broadway very well, and I was exposed to Broadway a lot. My grandparents lived on East 69th Street. I would come into the city. They'd take me to the Young People's Concert at Lincoln Center. I'd go to theater. It's what I knew. I went and saw Bob and Ray live on stage because of my grandfather. I saw Peter Cook and Dudley Moore because of my grandparents. That's what they took me to. I saw Mostel do Fiddler on the Roof because of my grandparents. I know. I was very lucky. And I try and give my kids that, and they accept maybe 60% of it, but it's not exactly for them. But that's what I did. And that's why I am who I am. So I really did love showbiz. It's very funny. I was on Rosie O'Donnell's show. I don't know why I'm going to this story, but I just saw this thing about Rosie O'Donnell. She was on Colbert the other night, and I was on her show. And she used to do her show live, but this was going to be a tape segment. So the question was exactly, who was your Streisand? When you were growing up, who was your Streisand? And I could have said Robert Preston, who was a big influence, Zero Mostel, who was a huge influence. For some reason, I said Woody Allen, because he was an enormous influence, especially at that age. And she looked at me, and then she looked at the audience, and she railed on me, because remember, at the time, she was best friends with Mia Farrow, and she had come out saying that she was abused. And the audience goes, ooh, like that. And I'm an improviser. I didn't know what to say. And she went at me for 10 minutes and tore him down and how could he blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden she stops and she goes, all right, we're going to forget that I said any of that, and we're going to go right to another question. Which was, she was that cold and calculated that she could do that, and she used to do this every day. I was flummoxed, and I saw the cut of the show because it was a tape piece. Talking like this and all free and everything, and then she cuts to her asking a question, and they come back to me, and I'm like pale, my mouth, I don't know what to say. It was like two different interviews. I don't know why I went into that story, but I just thought of it. All right, what other questions? That's how I got into showbiz.
But in high school, you were taking acting classes, or when did you first start studying, and who with?
In fifth grade, I played
fifth grade
in Oliver, and that's when it hit. That's when it hit, and then I did J.B. Bigley and How to Succeed in Business 1 year. The next year, I played Doc and Doc and Gladhand in West Side Story, and I got entrance applause. And I know this sounds cliched, but you get entrance applause. There's nothing like it. So I was hooked. That's what it was. I went to college for pre-law. I was never supposed to be an actor, never. And I took more. I was in more plays than most acting majors, most theater majors. I was the lead in so many plays, but I was not a theater major. And then, like I said, my dad's friend. I was accepted to law school, and my dad's friend said, "Just try it for a year." And it was. I joke about it, my luck. 1 year turned into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 40. So my luck. I'm in this profession, but I am the luckiest guy in the world. But I was supposed to have 2.5 kids, own the store, supposed to go to law school so that I could prepare myself to own a business. And I would have been a good salesman. I still would be a good salesman. I wouldn't mind being a salesman. Still, I enjoy it. If I believe in the product, I can sell it. I can sell anything to anybody if I believe in the product.
What are some products you believe in right now? Like for me, I've been really into Fresca, Goya lentils, Palm Wonderful pomegranate juice. What are some things that you believe in right now?
An Instapot. I love my Instapot.
Wow.
I just love it. Oh, it makes rice easily. It makes the lentils easily. There are some recipes that are so good and so easy. You just dump it in there, you turn the switch, and in 20 minutes later, you undo it, and you just stir it up, and it's fantastic. I hear that spare ribs are great in the Instapot. You cook them, and you can do it to a certain degree. I don't like them to fall off the bone. I like it to be a little chewy. Like, remember Carson's for ribs? First of all, I can sell Carson's for ribs. Carson's ribs are the best ribs in the world. You get them where they're juicy, but they're still on the bone. You can pull them off, and it has a glaze on the top. It's fantastic. You order it with the au gratin potatoes, and that's like burnt on the top, but inside. Oh, Carson's for ribs. And you go there, you get chopped liver with the onions, and you just put it on a cracker. You dip it in the end. It's Carson's. I could sell to a heart patient. It's just so good. And Instapot. Have you ever used an Instapot?
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, yes, we had one for a while. It's similar to a slow cooker, but faster, right?
Well, that's the whole thing.
Right.
It steam cooks. Yeah, and it's wonderful. It's really wonderful. Brisket in I don't know 40 minutes. It's great with the potatoes and the carrots, everything. Hey, it's fantastic. You know who turned me on to it? Matt Ballard. Matt Ballard turns me on to things. Ballard turns me on to things, and he's the cheapest guy in the world. He's so cheap. It's the Scottish, and I say that as a Jew, but he's the cheapest guy. And then his time of being interested in such a product does not last, and I want to kill him because he can sell me on anything. But he sold me on the Instapot, and I love it. I really do love it.
But Ballard is like a maven of sorts. Like he tells folks about things that are like, you should know about this. This would make your life better.
That's right. He does.
Yeah.
And I have another friend who's there are 4 guys. I should invite you sometime when we get back to having coffee. But you should come and join us. We go for coffee 2 or 3 times a week where we all know each other because our kids were in school together. We go for coffee. It's Matt Ballard, Brian Rutenberg, a magnificent artist, magnificent. And his studio is right around the corner from the pit. My friend Paul Lauer, who is a firefighter, and a guy who I love him. I admire him like I'm the younger brother. He can take care of everything. He gets under his house and he does the plumbing. He fixes the electricity. Changing I want to say, like a little fixture light bulb that's 50 or 60 degree watts, with those things scare me because I'm afraid they're going to burst in my face. He can fix anything, but he's a Trump supporter, or he's a Republican, and our politics are so different, and it drives me up the wall. But he's the greatest guy. Unfortunately, he gets his news from the New York Post, and I just try and get him to read decent stuff. But anyway, and then Matt Ballard, and we just sit and we talk. We just 4 different people, and we sit and talk, and it's just great conversation. We're there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, just having coffee. It's great.
I love it.
Wonderful. You would love it. You'd love it because you like the fine art of conversation. I like the art of conversation. It doesn't need to be so fine. You are so fine. You go into great details about things and are much more cerebral than I am.
I was telling my daughter the other day the word conversationalist, and she was like, "What is that?" It's like, I said, it's somebody who likes to have conversations. They listen, right. They react, they share their ideas, they listen to other people's ideas.
Yep. Now I have 2 things to say. My wife calls it chatter, not chitter chatter. And I go, no, it might be chitter chatter, but one great point will have to come out of it that you think about, that makes you stop for a second, or you can argue with. So it's not all chitter chatter. The second thing is, who is the guy who I'll bet you know. You know Dan Finnerty?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's Kathy and Jimmy's husband.
Yeah.
He does, okay. Yeah, he's in the Dan Band. Mm-hmm. He's the lead singer for the Dan Band, created it. Dan Finnerty has a habit or a peccadillo where he cannot leave a conversation until all the points that were brought up can be finished and can be addressed. He doesn't want to go home and slam the steering wheel, go, oh, he brought up that book. I wanted to talk about that book. I had something I wanted to say. And he will not leave a conversation. And it's really difficult because I have a feeling he's ADD. I must be ADD, although I've never been analyzed with it or diagnosed with it. But, during this conversation, my head is going here. Oh, remember to tell this story. he must tie up all threads, which I think is hilarious.
Well, I think it's all of life is panning for gold. So you have a conversation, it lasts as long as it lasts, but maybe you get this little nugget, and from that, something else can come from it. But I also try to impart on my daughters, it's the gift of gab. If you got the gift of gab, you're lucky. If you don't, then you have to some degree cultivate it. Otherwise, you're just going to be someone who it'll be challenging if you don't, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong.
I agree with that entirely. I think certainly I have the gift of gab. I think I'm a smart man. I wish I was smarter because I present myself as smarter, and I'm not that smart. I present myself as smart. It's bravado, it's volume, it's getting the words in because I push people aside. But I have a feeling I'm not nearly as smart as I think I am, or that I present myself as. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, look, to be able to do what you do and, taking other people's words and then making them your own, there's different, like I remember my dad gave me an article to read once when I was younger and out of the Reader's Digest that there's not one kind of genius. There's like 6 different kinds of genius, right? And I tell my younger daughter, because she's like, Ella's smarter than I am. I said, Olivia, you have one of the highest comedic IQs I've ever seen. And I know funny people, Olivia. So I said, Ella may be smarter in other ways. She may be book smart, but you have something that's very different than Ella because you can't judge everybody by one type of IQ. I mean, Michael Jordan has a athletic IQ that's very high, So
I
think you have to
you're
say,
right.
You have, your comedic IQ is off the charts. It's genius level, and your ability to learn lines and then make them what the people who wrote them are. So I don't know if I would beat myself up about whatever smarts you don't think you have.
Okay, without being coy, and I have developed, and I am pretty good, if not really good, at doing that. I'm talking about intellect. I'm talking about out-and-out intellect. When I say in conversation. And I love talking about showbiz. I'm really smart with showbiz. And my opinions, I believe, are smart. And I believe I can defend them. But often, like I say, my bravado takes front and center rather than my intellect. And when I hear others, I can talk about it. It's the difference between what Roger Ebert did and Pauline Kael. And George Bernard Shaw, somebody who can really dissect and look at something. When I go see a Broadway play, and usually if it got good reviews, they're printed outside, I will go and I will pore over those reviews because they tell me, it's sort of like Cliff Notes. They tell me in words how I felt while I was watching it because they are so astute. I remember, I don't know whether you saw the most recent version of Oklahoma, which I loved. I loved that version. Did you see it by any chance?
No.
And I could put into words. I cried during the whole thing, not because of the sentiment of the show, of which there is some. I cried because one guy was told what we were all told about Rodgers and Hammerstein all our lives, and he had a outsized vision that nobody would have ever thought of. And it was fantastic. And then I read Frank Rich's review. Not Frank Rich's. Yeah, it was Frank Rich in the New York Magazine. Frank Rich, who was so astute. Remind me to tell you a funny story about Frank Rich. But he wrote a vision of that play and why it was so great that I just learned so much, and he put into words what I think I was feeling, and even maybe was thinking, but couldn't elucidate. What's the word? I couldn't put into words. Is what I did, and he did. He put into words. Here's a funny story about Frank Rich. There was a play, a musical called The Mystery of Edwin Drood. Frank Rich gave it a love letter. A love letter. He loved it when it first came out. It won the Tony. He confessed to me that what he had done was he really didn't like the play, but he had just quit smoking, and he thought he was in a bad mood, and he could see some value in the play, and that it looked good, so he only found the good in it and wrote about that. And it's all because he felt guilty because he had just quit smoking and thought that was the reason that he hated it so much. Not hilarious.
Wow. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if I know anybody who sees as many plays as you do. You, like, even at cards, there's so many nights where Richard's at a play or Richard just came back from a play.
Yeah.
You know, and those are things you're finding on your own and paying for the tickets and going and seeing them because you are a student of the craft and you love theater, right?
I do. That's absolutely true. I love theater. Even the stuff I get bored at, I feel I should see. I want to say I've seen it. I never, except if I go to opening night, I never see a play for free. I will always pay for the ticket, but I will pay half price. I go to the TKTS booth because I think paying $170 for any show, I believe in theater, and I don't believe that you should have to pay $170. And I think that will change because of circumstances after this pandemic is through.
And you go to TKTS on your own?
All on my own, and I get one seat. And I usually go, for me, I go as a single. I usually go at about 20 minutes to 8, 20 minutes before curtain time. And they know me there. And I say, call the box office, see if they have one great seat. Because a lot of times they'll have one great seat. They're not going to have two, but they'll have one. So I go to the theater alone a lot. And they always have, I'm like usually sitting anywhere from row E to row G, right on the aisle. Luckiest guy in the world. That's what I do.
Did you ever play the role Marty? I mean, I think Marty would be a phenomenal role for you.
Yeah. I'm too old now.
Yeah.
I'm too old now. Yes, I used to do, there's a scene in it that I used to do in acting class. And John O'Reilly, who I adore as an actor, he did a musical version of Marty. It never made it to New York, but I believe he did it in Boston, and I would have liked to have seen that. However, a musical can be tough because unless you have like 3 or 4 people, you have to have it pared down. In my opinion, you should have 3 or 4 people in the orchestra so that you retain the intimacy of Marty. Marty goes to little bars and he sees, he falls in love with not a homely woman, but not a pretty woman. She's somewhere in between. She's not especially special, but for him, she's special. I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry right now because this is what he wants. And when you go to Broadway and you pay $180 for a ticket, that's not Marty. Marty is a $65 seat. So, boy, how do I get off from saying, oh, you should play Marty? But I love Marty. I think it's a wonderful. But I love Chayefsky. God almighty. I love Patty Chayefsky.
When you said acting class, which one did you mean? Where did you study? I mean, I studied with Win Handman in New York.
Did
Rest
you?
in peace.
You did, yeah.
Unbelievable.
I never knew him.
And I also studied with Marianne Thebus in Chicago. She
was
at the Center Theater. And so
she's a wonderful actress.
Yeah, she's amazing. Amazing actor. And I studied with Del Close, you know. And so Del Close, you know, Marianne Thebus, and Win Handman are people who I have to say, like, you know, that's where I got a lot of it. And Sharna Halpern too, you know, in terms of like, you know, starting a place where I could take a class. Who are some people who you studied with who might have like given you, you know, some words of wisdom or things you use to this day as an actor?
The best teacher who I had can be summed up in one sentence, and he made a career out of saying it over and over and over again. And he just said, we are playing pretend. That's all we're doing. We are pretending that we are Martys. And usually when you say play pretend, you think of children playing and having fun. But you can do Long Day's Journey into Night and play pretend that you were an aged former actor who is chintzy, or you can play pretend that you are a drug-addled mother who resents her husband and the life that she leads. And it doesn't have to be happy play pretend. You're just doing what children do in the playground. And that's all we're doing. Okay? The good thing is if you have a good time doing it, even if the subject is so tragic. But that's all we're doing. And if you were playing Cowboys and Indians, you would not say, what tribe am I from? Do I have any children? Do I have a recent papoose? What is my tent like? You don't do that. You just go, I'm an Indian. Let's play an Indian. And you just go out and play. That's what you know. And you just play. All of the words, he used to say, are in the script. Everything you need to know about the character is in the script. You got any questions? Don't go to the encyclopedia. Don't go to Wikipedia. Don't go talking to it's in the script. Play pretend. The author put it there. It's all there. I used to say that Donald Sutherland and Anthony Hopkins would pour over, before they did a role, they just poured over the script, just reread it over and over and over and over and over again, and then read it again, and then read it again. For a month, they would read it 3-4 times a day. It's a lot of work. So if an actor really does work, and do I do that kind of work? I don't. But they really poured over the script. And that's how you do it. And
what was this man's name?
Harry Mastrogiorgio, and he's still alive. He taught Ray Liotta. He taught Walter Goggins. I was in a class with she's Heather Graham. Heather Graham was in my class, and Flea. She was going out with Flea at the time. But he's a wonderful teacher, and that is what he taught. And the bad thing is, because you used to take acting classes, so that you're in there and you get set up with a scene partner. Hopefully she was pretty. You rehearsed at home, and hopefully you got laid. He did not let you rehearse at home. You just had to go and memorize the lines, not by going over them, so you got it by rote. You just had to read the script and read the script and read the script, and then you came in and you sat across the table, so you never saw each other before that. And then all of a sudden, Tuesday night, you say the words looking at each other. Do you know the words? Are you truly reacting to what the other person's saying? And that's what it was. I would have to say that directors taught me the most, and you know who really taught me the most of anybody? Being on stage every night, 6 nights a week, in front of an audience. And doing whatever I wanted to do during improv, playing any kind of character, and they would they were like sheepdogs, guiding me this way, guiding me that way, with their laughter, with their applause. You can feel it. And I have a great sense of what an audience is feeling. I'm very good at that. I can find the light and I can feel the audience. That is why I'm better on stage than I am on film. And that's what I could do. That's what I did. I got to work with Arthur Penn, who was a wonderful, wonderful director and didn't say a lot. And the big thing with directors is because if somebody gives me a direction, and I'm going to tell you something. There is nobody better at taking direction than me. I'm going to tell you an astounding fact. This is not for a regular, and it didn't happen for a movie, but for any guest spot on a TV show, if it was a guest and I had to go in and audition, I always got the role. I always got it because I would ask for direction. I would say, what do you want from this? And I gave it to them in spades. So not only was I good, the director looked good. And I always got the role. So if I ever got a piece of direction, I took it and I ran with it. And I once had Arthur Hiller. I did an audition for him And I did the thing. He goes, oh, it's great. He goes, why don't we try it this way? And I did, and I did it his way. And he goes, that was great. That was absolutely what I wanted, but your way is better. I just wanted to see if you could take direction. And I did. Yeah. I love getting direction.
Harry Master Giorgio?
Harry Mastro Giorgio.
Master Giorgio.
No,
and when you said
sorry. Harry Mastro George. Harry, no. I have a friend, Danny Mastro Giorgio. This guy is Harry Mastro George.
And was that in New York or Chicago? Where were these classes?
That was in L.A.
In L.A.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you said 6 nights a week, you're talking about Second City, right?
Yeah.
Right. How did that happen? How you ended up at Northwestern, right? You went there to go to school.
Second City is a great story.
How did it happen?
A phenomenal story. Okay. So I go to Northwestern. After Northwestern, I go to New York because I felt that all great actors should go to New York and get theater training, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the stuff I do because I'm supposed to do it. And I am, even though I was rebellious by going and being an actor, I'm going to do it by the book. So I go to New York, I get the apartment there, everything like that. And I'm there for a few years taking classes, a wonderful guy named Dale Robert McCausland. He was my teacher. But I would do I go and I did a lot of plays, off Broadway plays. I was working all the time. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Brad Hall, Gary Kroger, and Paul Barras were all chosen to come to Saturday Night Live because they had formed the Practical Theater Company, which was in the ETC space. So they come to New York to be on SNL, and I'm friends with them because I went to school with them. And they said, we have a theater in Chicago, a Practical Theater. Why don't you go open a play? Why don't you go create a review there? Now, I had never done improv. I was not a Second City guy. But I was enamored by them because, you know, my heroes, Alan Arkin, and I mean, even Roger Bowen, who I don't think you know, but these were all heroes of mine. So my friend Tom Virtue and I, who went to Northwestern together, we were roommates, we went out to Chicago, and we opened a play. We started rehearsal in January, opened the play in March, January, February, March. Yeah, maybe we opened in April or May. I don't know. Maybe it was May. But we worked on it a long time, and we opened a show called Mega Fund at Practical Theater Company. Opening night, Bernie Solins comes to see the show and says, I want you to come to my office tomorrow morning, to me and Birch. And the show got great reviews, great word of mouth. We were supposed to run until for a month, 5 weeks, whatever. We ran until October. And Bernie, the next day, I go to his office, and he says, I'll do a little bit of Bernie. He goes, I want you to be in our next show. And I go, well, I want you to be in Second City. And I go, but I've never improvised before. And he goes, you'll learn. And I did. It took me about 1.5 years, 2 years of Megan Fay being very good to me, John Kapelos being a great teacher at the same time as being a jerk, Mike Haggerty, great. And I learned how to improvise. And the audience told me how to improvise and move me back and forth. And by the way, when I say, when Alfred Hitchcock uses the word actors are cattle, he doesn't mean that they're dumb. He just says that they are easy to move about, like an Australian sheepdog. Just pushes a cow this way so that they stay on trail and they stay in the herd. And then they go a little bit this way. You just nudge them a little bit this way. And I think that's what Hitchcock meant. I don't think he meant that they had the brain power of cows. I think he just meant that they can be led like a herd of cattle. Just push them a little this way. Push them, just nudge them a little. And that's what the audience does. They tell you what you're good at, what you can do. And I would try and push myself, and I still do, especially when I go do theater. But I know who I am and what I am, and I think that's an important thing to know as an actor. I think it's very important. And to let people in. Yeah.
So Megafun and the Practical Theater was at where the actual ETC is now. That's where the stage
was.
Right.
Oh, it was. It's where it was. And Jim Fay, I used to joke that Jim Fay, here I go and I go do a play, and Jim Fay has been in the touring company for, I don't know, 2-3 years, and all of a sudden this schmuck from New York comes in, opens up the play, and goes not to the touring company, not to the ETC space, doesn't even take classes. I go right to main stage. Can you imagine how angry all those people were? Jim Fay, I used to say, used to have a target with my face on it, and he used to throw darts at it. Oh, he hated me. He hated me. One time he was a drinker, and he was the smartest guy in the room, and actually was a good man. But when he had liquor in him, he was a very mean drunk, and his words were darts. He could tear somebody down. Were you ever lucky enough to see him work?
No.
Oh, he could. He was Don Rickles without warmth. You could not say he's Mr. Warmth. He would tear you apart. Just give you a new asshole right on stage in front of an audience. He would rip you to shreds. There would be people who he felt were undeserving to be in the company, and he would improvise with them in front of the audience. They would come and be invited to do a set, and he just ripped them apart. It was horrible. Oh, he was so mean. And he was one night at the bar with me, and he had a few too many. And he's going, no, I mean, because you're so talented. You can't improvise. He was so mean. He just tore me apart one night. And I knew he was mean. I knew he was jealous. And I could have come back and just said, yeah, Jim, but I'm on main stage because I'm a better actor. I could have said that, but I didn't. But that's why. And then Jim, who was a great improviser and was not a great actor. He was a great wit, but not a great actor. He was a great mind, but not a great actor. But he was sufficient. He was sufficient to be on the main stage as an actor. But I always say, and this is important, and I actually think that you should tell your students this, one of my adages, in order to be a good actor, in order to be a good improviser, you have to be a good actor. But in order to be a good improviser, wait, hold on. What do I want to say? In order to be a good improviser, you have to be a good actor. But in order to be a good actor, you don't have to be a good improviser. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Joyce used to talk about that all the time, and Joyce was a big fan.
Really?
Of Joyce Slow. Yeah, she loved you.
Well, my God, yeah, she did.
But she was there with. You were like a son to her.
I was like a son to her. I was truly like a son. Haggerty and I were like sons to her. She loved us.
But Bernie was the one who saw you. You did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Bernie, and Bernie was directing the shows at that time, so he wanted me in the show. We did a retrospective show with we did a special for, at the time, was it Showtime or could have been HBO, with Fred Willard, and we did a best of show. We did Funeral. It was terrific, and we did. Well, yeah, Bean Can.
Bean Can.
And
right.
We did that for about 3 or 4 months while we developed the show, and that's when we developed Orwell That Ends Well. It was such a good show that it was taken to New York, and we played the Village Gate. And that was my first show. Yeah. I got lucky. I was with really good people.
So Bernie was the director. Who was the piano player and the stage manager? Was it Ruby and Craig?
No, Ruby had 3 or 4 years, but Ruby had maybe 8 years before she was ever took over for Fred.
Oh, easily. Right, Fred Kaz.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. You talk about a teacher. Fred Kaz taught me with 10 fingers and the 88 keys. He was, and a vocabulary and a way of speaking here we are. We're talking in very linear terms. Fred talked in cryptograms. He talked in riddles, in ways that you're nodding your head, and you'd better listen carefully because you're not going to get it while you're talking to him. You just talk, and he would say things. He would say things of brilliance, poetry, but it was jazz. And only 2 hours later, when you thought about what he said, did you parse it together and say, "Oh, that's the stage direction." I did not work as well under Fred as I wish I could, because he was so brilliant in the way that he talked. But he knew that I wanted to. He knew that I was a suburban Jew kid who wanted to follow the straight and narrow, and he wanted to teach me otherwise. He wanted to teach me ways of protesting that weren't just linear. Now, did I learn from him? I'm able to be around people who are better at it than me, but I just talk like these adages. I talk the straight and narrow. I'm not a rebel. I'm not a great Kerouac thinker or a Ginsberg thinker. I don't talk in the poetry. I talk like I talk. And I think you talk like you talk, but I think quite often you get into the realm of poetry and shaping your words to be images rather than just flat out just straight. Do you agree with that?
I thank you for it. I mean, like I said, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy listening. And one of the things I say to my daughters, I say, because, I want them to talk at dinner, so I don't say a lot of stuff. Or when I do say stuff, I want them to practice talking at dinner. I say, I get paid to listen. The talking I throw in for free.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Because
that's a twist on the acting thing.
Mm-hmm. And was Craig Taylor?
That. It was. I think it was Burl Odds who said, as an actor going, on set, he goes, "I'm paid to wait. The acting I do for free."
Right.
So.
And so you were at Second City for how long? I'm sorry.
It was about 4 years. It was 4 years, and then I went to I was terrified of going to L.A. I was so scared that I developed a skin disease called vitiligo, which is why I'm so pale. I lost my pigment. Isn't that crazy? I was so scared of going to L.A., and I was so comfortable in Chicago. And it took me about 8 months to go to make the trip to L.A. I kept saying I'm going to leave during what are they called? Benefit season. January, February, March was benefit season because you couldn't count on the tourists coming into Chicago, so they had benefit season. You had 2, 3, 4 nights a week that were all paid for benefits, and they were terrible because it was homogeneous audiences. And looking around, should I laugh here? Should I laugh here? So I said I'm going to do that, and I didn't leave. I didn't leave until April.
How from when you got to Los Angeles, how long before the Carol Burnett show came about?
When I came to, I said I would leave in January. I went and did a pilot in March with somebody who's now on my resume as my best friend. That's a joke, but everybody knows him as my best friend. George Clooney and I played brothers.
Bennett brothers.
Did that in March. Yeah, the Bennett brothers. And that's when he kept saying, you got to come out here, you got to come out here, you got to come out here. So finally in September, maybe August, September, I came out to L.A., and I got my first series, which I did not want to be a comedy because everybody would know from my resume that I could do comedy because it was on my because Second City was on my resume. So I did a drama. I did Stephen Cannell is.
Yeah.
Creator of the A-Team and stuff. He created a show called Unsub. Mm-hmm. Okay, I call it Unsub. What Unsub? Unsub was short for unknown subject. So I call it. So that was the name of the show. It was the team that Jodie Foster worked for on the FBI when she did Silence of the Lambs. You go after an unknown subject who's a serial killer. So it was a show based on that department in the FBI. It lasted 11 episodes plus the pilot. It actually was 12 episodes, right to series, and Peter Roth, who used to be head of Channel and is now head of Warner Brothers TV, whenever he sees me, he hugs me and goes, we started it. We had the first. It was a procedural, like CSI, like Criminal Minds, like all of those gruesome shows that follow what goes on behind the murder. This was the first of it, and it was ahead of its time. It was in 1987, I would say. And we were the first. We were the first. And it took about 15 years before that genre of show caught on. But it was a gruesome TV show. And so that lasted 12 episodes. And then I did an episode of a show called Anything But Love with Jamie Lee Curtis and Richard, Richard Lewis. And that got me some attention. And then Carol Burnett's show knew about me, and I was hired for that. And that was the greatest. If that could have continued for 15 years, I would have loved it, because it was a regular contract, but we did a different genre of entertainment every week. We did variety show. We did zany Marx Brothers stuff. We did parodies. We did original stories that were sort of 22 minutes. We did like a Jules Feifler-esque sketch, episode. We did musicals. It was great, and that's what I loved. And it was an anthology series, but rather than be Twilight Zone or Outer Limits, it was comedy, and that's what we did. And it didn't work, or it was too tough to write. You got to introduce, do the show, and then wrap it up in 22 minutes. It's tough to do. So that's what we did. So
but I mean, to work with Carol Burnett, I mean,
the greatest, the most wonderful. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can you when you're working?
Yeah.
When you're working with someone like that, and you're that close to them, you're playing opposite them. Are there people like that you've been opposite? Who you were like, wow, I am in the big leagues now. This person is very good at what they do.
I got a career of them. I got a career of those. Did I ever think? My dream when I was growing up was I had three of them: to be in a Woody Allen movie, to be in a Stanley Kubrick movie, and to be in an original Sondheim Prince musical. The first one that I did was I was on an original, the lead with my B- voice. I can sing. I'm not great. I can act a song, but I'm not a great singer. I was the lead in a Sondheim Prince musical. The lead. The songs were written for me. If Sondheim wanted to change the songs, he would give me the lyric sheets. He would change the lyrics. It was me. He would write a new song and say, I wrote this for you. It was crazy. Sondheim. And then my joke used to be, I have a better chance of being in a Kubrick movie than of being in a Woody Allen movie. And Kubrick was dead. Woody Allen has never hired me. This past summer, he did hire me. So I have a role in his newest movie. But it took that long. And everybody goes, well, you've been in a Woody Allen movie. I had never been in a Woody Allen movie. But the really crazy one is that I got to do a Sondheim Prince musical. And you can hear it. It's on an album. It's nuts that I got to it. What was the question? The people I've worked with. Clint Eastwood, the Coen brothers, Arthur Penn, Joanne Woodward. That I worked opposite Michael J. Fox. And when he was acting, I'm like looking at him going, really? You're going to do thinking in my head, that's the choice you're going to make? That's the acting choice you're going to make? And I would watch him on TV, and I'd go, oh, my God, this guy is the greatest. He's so good. I couldn't believe it. And while I'm watching him act and looking at him, I'm going, you can't be serious. You can't be serious. This isn't how you're going to deliver that line. He's magnificent. Same thing with Christopher Walken. I would do this, and I'm looking at him. I got to do a movie with Christopher Walken, and I literally am looking at him going, "You can't be." I'm acting with him. You don't know that, but this is what I'm thinking. And then I see him and I go, "Oh my God, he's so good." He was crazy good, crazy good. Larry Gelbart. I did every play that Larry Gelbart wrote except for a play called Mastergate. I did Forum. I did City of Angels. I did a play called Power Failure. I did Sly Fox on Broadway, directed by Arthur Penn. Larry Gelbart really liked me. He thought I was pretty good. And when he passed away, the memorial in LA was going to have the greatest that ever worked with him, but nobody was really there to represent his plays, and I knew that he liked me. And his widow asked me to speak, and I can't say I knew him well, but I realized that she wanted me to speak because I knew his plays. So I got up and I spoke, and it was at the Academy, at the Motion Picture Academy, which is an enormous theater. It's like 1,200 seats, and it goes way back. So if you're saying something in the front row, nobody can hear you. But, if you're amplified, everybody can hear you. So I'm talking, and I wanted to end with the first great speech from Sly Fox, which is a beautiful monologue, talking all about money and everything like that. So my memorial was good, but then I got to the monologue, and I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it because I was acting out this couple of minute speech. And in the front row, Mel Brooks is there. And I'm like, and I know I shouldn't have been doing it while I'm doing it, but I had no idea. I just wanted to show off the glory of his wordplay. And Mel Brooks goes, "They're getting out the hook, Rich." In front of the whole audience. I get heckled at a memorial at Larry Gelbart's funeral. And like I said, nobody heard it, but I did. And I got off. And it just makes me laugh that I have this story that I got heckled at a funeral by Mel Brooks. So one of my favorite stories.
And I was just watching the Kennedy Honors where you're singing, in front of Mel Brooks, and he's smiling and loving what you're doing.
Oh, no. Mel liked me a lot. I did a Stoppard play in Summer Theater out in Sag Harbor at Bay Street Theater called Rough Crossing. And I had auditioned for Mel to play Bialystok. And they decided they'll give me the tour. Well, I didn't want a tour. So that was around December. And then the following summer, I did Rough Crossing. And he and Ann came to see it. And Ann really liked me. She thought I was terrific. She was lovely to me. And they come backstage, which they never do. And he came up to me and he said, "You're going to do Max." So that following December, I did do Max on Broadway. And then I did The Producers at the Hollywood Bowl, which was one of the great thrills of my life. And because of Stroh put together the Mel Brooks piece, she asked me to do the Inquisition at the Kennedy Center. So I was very lucky. I was lucky to know Stroh, who is the greatest, the most generous, the most loyal, sometimes loyal to a fault, and Mel knew me too. And he was really grateful that I did the Hollywood Bowl, and I really saved him from a jam because they didn't have anybody to do the role. I guess Nathan was busy or didn't want to do it, so they tried to get probably Kelsey Grammer. You can't do it without having done it. It's too big a role to learn in 2 weeks. So I did it for him, and I was very happy to do it. I was very proud to do it. But every time at the end, I kept feeling like he was going, "Oh, Richard Kind, he's terrific. He's not Nathan Lane, but he's terrific. He's terrific," like that. So it was nice doing it. But I did my Max was so different from what Nathan did. Nathan is so good. Oh my God, he was more Gleason than he was Zero Mostel, and he was so good. Oh my gosh, he was great. He was great.
When you say like you're acting opposite Michael J. Fox or Christopher Walken, you're thinking, what are they doing? Are you that
Right.
you're so comfortable with your lines, you know? So memorizing lines, knowing your lines is not even something you're even worried about. That you can be that much in the moment to be like looking at, you know, thinking about someone else's doing thing. Did it always come easy to you, just learning lines for both script
Well,
and
learning
song?
lines is, you're obviously an improviser. Acting is infinite. How do you feel that day versus how did you feel the day before? What does the camera look like? How was the audience? There's so many variables. Do I have the character? Do I have guests at the time? And do I want to fart the entire time I'm saying my life? So many things could be going on. There's only one constant. The lines. Do you know the lines or do you not know the lines? The only thing that's finite. You either know them or you don't. So the easiest thing about acting is knowing the lines. If you know the lines, I want to say you're halfway there. You're not. Because a lot of the times the lines don't mean anything. It's how are you acting them? What is the audience feeling because of that? Yes, they're listening, but they're feeling more. So do you have the lines or you don't? Yeah, I got the lines.
And how do you go about learning lines? What's your process for that?
My honestly, for me, I call it it's like pea soup out of Linda Blair's mouth. You just go over them and over them out loud. I like, even if it's a monologue, I like to do it in front of somebody. I just like to run lines in front of somebody saying it to them. I can't do it on my own. I just do it over and over and over until I can say the lines backwards and forwards, so that I don't think about the lines. They're going to come. So I can think about what do I mean while I'm saying them. So I can make it seem like they are coming to me at that moment. That's what it's like. That's what it is.
And so, like with a show like Spin City, where you and Michael Boatner are the only ones to be in every episode, and it's a long run. That show airs for many years. Is that something you like, to be in something that, like, you look, I know it's consistent, I like the character, I like the show?
Nope, because I'm going to tell you a few things. I wanted to quit after 2.5 years. I went into Michael Fox, who was such a smart man, and Michael liked me. He knew what I served in the show. Like, you know, in Second City, you have the good cop, you know, high status, low status, good cop, bad cop, the one who drives the scene, the one who's funny. He knew what he had in me in Spin City. I got tired of it. I got so tired. I used to say it's the same line, the same joke, different words, the same thing over and over. I went nuts. I wanted to kill myself. And I went in after about 2.5 years and say, I can't do this anymore. You got to let me out. And he said, I would love to. I don't think my partners would allow me to. It was so smart. It's like, Richard, I understand. I'm sorry, you got to do this. And you know that Ted Knight had to quit Mary Tyler Moore after a few years? He couldn't stand walking down the street and having people go, Baxter, and you know, Ted Baxter, and saying the same stupid lines, the same, just different words. He was doing the same thing week after week, just different words. And they wouldn't let him quit. Now, in retrospect, I have 3 children. I had a steady job. It paid. It's good to do that. It's very good. I like doing different episodic jobs. I like going from one job, one series to another with a different cast and meeting new people and getting new jobs and being introduced. And I got to explore what a character is, because when you're introduced in a series, you got to explore that character. So it's somebody different. And so I got to create this guy. But there is a stigma to it. They think that you can't do a series. And a series is the only thing that pays in this business. You got to be a regular. And I don't like it, but it's the price you pay. And I have kids now, and I have to support them. and I need a regular gig. I need a regular job. That's just the bottom line.
So, with that in mind, what would be like your ideal, next chapter in terms of would you be living in New York, picked up every day?
I am. I do live in New York. What I love, like, I love doing short runs, 3 months, 4 months. That is perfect. What is my idea? My ideal gig right now is I got to get a series, and I hope that it runs 3 or 4 years. That's what I hope. I like doing the 12 episodes. Did you see a show called Red Oaks?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Red Oaks was a dream job. The guy was not an idiot. I got to talk like a real person. I didn't have to say jokes. I got to have a through line. There's an arc in my character, and we only did 12 episodes per year. That was fantastic. That's what I'd love to do. And then go off and do a play, or go do the guest spots. Go do 5, 6, 7 guest spots. Do a play for 2 months at a summer theater. That's my dream. That's what I would love to do. And have a steady gig so that I can afford to do the lesser paying jobs. But I got to make a living. I'm a father. I got to do it.
And now, as far as the steady gig goes, like when I was talking to Fred Weller, like Fred said he wanted to be a fake attorney in a TV show in New York. Reed Birney said he didn't care. It was about the part.
Fred does not want to do that. Fred says he does. He doesn't. Doing those attorney things, again, same line, different words. He would kill himself. Does he want to be a regular on a show? Yes. Does he want the same character so that he can survive and live, like an actor should? Yes, but he does not want to be in one of those, what do they call it? Not industrial, procedurals. I know him too well. He doesn't want to do that. But it's a dream job.
But for someone like you, are there a type of do you care if it's a businessman or a lawyer or a doctor? Does that interest you at all, or you don't care? It's just got to be a good show with a good story with good people around it.
As Hank Azaria said, don't you ever say no. Don't you ever turn down a job. I love to work. I take them all. I swear to God. I take this podcast. I take anything. I love to work. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I live for it. And unfortunately, producers know that actors will forego the money for the job. They love the work. A true actor loves the work.
How did golf start being such a big part of your life, where you're playing charity golf events? I know you love golf. You got a place in LA too? Yeah.
I do. I don't have a home in LA, but I did. But I belong to a club out there. I don't belong to a club here.
How did golf come into your life?
My dad was a huge golfer and a good golfer. He played since he was a kid. He played for the Army. He tried to get me involved in it. I hated it, and so I didn't take lessons. That is, I think, my greatest regret in life is that I didn't learn golf when I was young, because I would be much better today. You learn how to turn when you're young and supple. It's like you take a baby, you can fold a baby in half, right? You just literally could fold the baby in half. After the age of 3, you can't fold a kid in half. They already have the muscle that you can't do that. They're not just pure pliable rubber bands. Well, imagine what happens when you're 35 and you can't turn like you could when you were 12 or 13. So I wish I had learned how to swing a golf club at that age so that I would know what to aspire to, even if I couldn't do it when I was 60. But when I was at Second City, you work at night. What do you do during the day? What can you do? What did you do during the day if you weren't opening the show?
Well, I was, I always had a job because I never wanted to rely on one place for my income. So I always had a job bartending or waiting tables.
Yes, but you had to do that. You didn't do that in the day, did you?
Well, yeah, I got lunch shifts, at restaurants.
Oh.
And I also worked in video stores. And, my Second City time was, 2.5 years on the road and then 9 months in ETC. And from there, I went to Saturday Night Live. So my ETC experience.
When you were in ETC, did you make a living?
No, that's why I had a job waiting tables at a place called the Black Hawk Lodge during the day.
Oh,
okay. So I did that.
I did make a living being on main stage. I didn't take a job during the day. I guess I could have. I don't know. Did you know anybody on main stage who had a job during the day?
No, but main stage was 6 nights a week. You needed that day off. It's a little more more intense than ETC. ETC was usually Wednesday through Sunday. Sometimes they canceled Wednesday. The pay wasn't the same. We were a different contract. So I think main stage was like you could in Chicago.
It's a different animal.
You can make a living.
So I made a living. So I really couldn't work during the day. So I had to find something that would occupy my time. And I liked playing golf. And I met some friends who were my roommates' best friends from high school. They needed a fourth in their group. And I was not a golfer. And I said I would play. I would do it. I started taking lessons, and I was horrible. I would shoot 120, 130. And it was terrible. And I would lose money to them. We would gamble. And I would lose money. Now I'm better than that foursome is today. Because I'm a decent golfer now, but that's how I did it. And then I got, and the bad thing about golf that I'm glad that I didn't take up when I was young is that it is an addictive activity. Once you know what you're doing, once you get decent at doing it, you become addicted. I know it all. I got so addicted to golf that when I lived in LA and belonged to my club, I would turn down auditions because I was playing golf. I would come home and I would be too tired to play with my kids. I would fall asleep because I had been out on the golf course. So rather than quit the club, I quit LA and I moved to New York where you can't play golf.
Wow. And then how do the charity golf events come up? Like people they know you play and they say, hey, can you play this event?
Exactly. It's very simple. You go to one, look, I'm a personable guy. I get put in with a foursome. I know that I'm doing it for charity. I know that there is no free lunch. I know I get to play golf, but I get to help out a charity, and I get to help out the charity by being nice to the people who pay a lot of money to play with an actor. Although one of my funny stories is I told my mother I was playing in a celebrity tournament. She goes, "Oh, who's your celebrity?" So that's mother.
And what about poker? When did poker come up? How did that become part of your life?
I don't know. My dad was a big poker player. I found out in college. He liked skipping classes to play poker. I never knew that about my dad, and he didn't play poker when I was growing up. But he did play gin all the time. And for money, but he didn't play poker. And my dad was a great gin player as well. But I don't know when poker came up. I guess I just sort of played. And I remember the first group that I played with that I put together was Matt Perry and Hank Azaria and David Pressman and I was and Schwimmer. And I was the knowledgeable one about poker, and then they all got much better than me and got richer than me. And I couldn't afford the game, and I certainly couldn't afford to lose the money. Last night, I played poker online with friends, a lot of Simpsons writers, as a matter of fact. And I was a little drunk because I drink now every night. I drink wine, and I was tired. I played the worst poker of my life, stupid bets, and I lost $200, and I am so upset about losing $200. I won 105, a few days ago, but I was so upset losing the money. So I don't play poker that much. I don't play with those guys anymore, with Matt and Slavens and all of those guys. I don't play anymore because they're better than I am, and something else is that money, like you say, big stacks, that's ammunition, and I can't afford the ammunition. So I have to wait for great cards, and I can't take a chance. I can't call a bet because I know somebody's bluffing in case they're not bluffing, and they can read me too much. They know that I'm scared. They know I'm playing scared because I got 3 kids in private school. I can't play poker, and I love winning. I love winning money, but I hate losing more than I love winning. So I don't play that much anymore.
How did the voiceover work? I mean, my daughters, and I love the movie too, Inside Out, how did that come about where all of a sudden, being, a voice actor like that for Pixar became part of your career?
All right. That's a sort of easy to answer. They called me. I did not do a lot of voices for cartoons, but I act in everything. Like I said, I don't say no to anything. So, am I a voiceover actor? No, I'm not a voiceover actor. I'm an actor, and I do voiceovers. I haven't done any for commercials. I think I have a terrific voice and recognizable voice. It's fun. I've never done like on the third, doing Mercedes Benz. It's driver. I've never done any of that. But I've done operas. I've done Broadway. I've done radio plays. I do everything. So I'm on Spin City, and my name on the show is Paul Lasseter. John Lasseter, who founded Pixar, was president of it. He's no longer, but he's just a great guy, just a great mind, a great creator. He's truly one of my favorite people, and one of the only presidents of a company that I really trust. His son and his father are named Paul Lasseter. So he's aware of my presence. Watches Spin City, likes my character. Bugs Life comes about. He asks me to be Kevin Spacey's brother in the movie. It's great. I can't believe it. I'm going to be working for Pixar. And I've done 6 movies for them. From what I understand, the role that I did in Inside Out was written for me. And Pete Docter said to John Lasseter at the time when John was president, how about Richard Kind? John loved it, loved the idea. I understand that Bill Murray was in contention for that role. Bill Murray would have been of course, how we all feel about Bill Murray, that you can do no wrong. If he were Bing Bong, he would have done wrong. You can't. Bing Bong is pure innocence, and Bill Murray is. You can't get the snark out of his voice. So I got offered. They gave it to me. I did a role in Toy Story 3. They give me these roles. I did audition for the Abominable Snowman in Monsters, Inc. And they discovered that my voice was too similar to Billy Crystal's. I think I even recorded, so they had replaced me. But I do that. And then I do cartoons. It's not that I set out to be a voice actor. I get asked to do them, and I love them. I love doing them. They're exhausting, actually, because I put a lot of energy into it, and I'm not a runner, and I huff and puff sometimes, and I ask for just settle down, let it catch my breath in order to do the right reading of something. So they're surprisingly difficult, but none of the stuff is so difficult.
Now, is the stuff you get is mostly they're coming to you and saying, "Hey, Richard, we've got this role," and offering it to you, but do you still have to audition?
Let me tell you a couple of things. Yes, they usually come to me. That is how I do it anymore. It's usually an offer. I'm going to tell you something. This is something I teach in class if I teach or give a lecture, and it's really, really, really good advice. Number one, because I like to work, I want to go out for everything, anything and everything. So if you think I'm wrong for it, let me audition. I'll show you that I'm right. If I think I'm right for the role, let me come and give it a shot. And I get offered auditions, and I go, I'm not right for this. You need somebody else. You need another character. I auditioned for Seinfeld once, early on, and a friend of mine would have been much better for the part. And I said, I shouldn't be reading for this. You should get this guy, a guy named Bradley Mott had come. And the woman said, oh, no, he's not available. Well, I know for a fact he was available, but I'm not going to argue in the audition. And so she goes, well, he's not available. I go, well, then I'm by far the second best choice. But I will go in and I will say, I'm not right for this. I'll tell my manager, I'm not right for this role. I'm not right. Somebody else is better. They wanted this type. However, I love to audition. So even if I'm not right for it, I'll go in and audition. Because, number one, I love to act. Number two, I may not be right, but they may think of me for sometime later. And the third thing is, you gotta love to audition. And I love to audition. I'm the stupidest guy in the world. I like auditioning because an artist can paint alone. A writer can write alone. But an actor just can't write alone. Even if it's one person with a camera, you need an audience. You just need an audience. I like to act. It's what I live for. I've chosen it as my profession. Let me act. So, two people in a casting office, that's an audience. Let me go in and audition. I love it. So, learn to love auditioning. Just love it. Just say, this is why, pardon me, I just hiccuped. This is why God put me on the planet. This is what I love to do. I'm being given an opportunity to act. All right, I'm not getting paid for it. I might get paid for it down the line, but right now, I get to do what I love. Go in and audition. Love it. Learn to love the audition, and you'll do much better. And I'm going to tell you another thing. This is really good advice. Forgive me for being so on my high horse, but when you go in an audition, you want the part, of course, but that's not the attitude you should take. The attitude you should take is the people who are auditioning you want the best actor they can get so that their piece of entertainment can be put on at the highest level. If you believe you are right for the role and can do a good job, walk in that room with the attitude, you don't say this out loud, with the attitude that you want if it's, let's say it's a pilot, you want this pilot to be the next Seinfeld. You guys all want to be really, really, really rich. I can help you. I know this guy. I can help make this pilot the best pilot that you ever wanted it to be. I just hope you cast as well around me as what I'm going to give you right now. So you take the burden off of yourself saying, I want a job, and you walk in saying, I'm going to help you. I'm going to make your product better than you thought it could be. And I think that's a good attitude to walk in on.
Now, do you teach? You mentioned teaching. I think you'd be an amazing teacher. Do you do that?
I don't really. I'll give lectures about what it's like to be an actor, but I certainly won't teach improv, and I'll tell you why. Or if I do teach improv, I do just at the elemental, teach the advertising game or stuff like that. The reason why is because, like I say, I'm a very linear guy. And if I were to be presented with a Robin Williams or a Jim Carrey, and I at all stifled them because I said, "Oh no, you gotta act it like this," I'd feel terrible. I would feel horrible if I squelched somebody's given talent because they're so much more talented than I am. And maybe I would have an eye for it, and maybe I could cultivate their talent, but I'm afraid that I would. The chances might be that I'd stifle them. You know who I heard very nice things about is Bill Hader asked if I knew Dave Razowsky or whatever, and I said, yeah, I do. He goes, he was so good to me. Hader said this. He goes, he was so complimentary and saw my talent. He really had a great influence on him and was such a fan that he gave him confidence. And I would hope that I would be that kind of teacher. But it doesn't surprise me that Dave Razowsky was that kind of a teacher because he's such a good guy.
To Curb Your Enthusiasm, was that just an offer, or did you have to audition for that? And is that mostly improv in the audition and in the shooting process?
All right, I got a good story for that. At the time that Curb Your Enthusiasm first started, anybody who was guessing who had a modicum of fame or who was famous played themselves, with the exception of Ed Asner, because Ed Asner's character dies in the show, and Larry didn't want. He's very funny this way. He didn't want people to think that Ed Asner had really died, so he's very conscious of who he's hiring and what they're bringing to the table. Larry David thought that he needed the character of Cousin Andy, and Jeff Garlin, who was one of my best friends, remains one of my best friends, suggested me that I'd be good. And Larry said, no, he's too famous. And Jeff said, no, he's not. And he goes, yeah, I told him, I go, no, I'm not. I'm not too famous. I can play the character. They're not going to think that I'm Richard Todd. They'll know that I'm an actor playing Cousin Andy. And so they tried getting other people, and they finally came up and said, yeah, you do it. So that's how I got it. I didn't have to audition. And yes, that show is, and you must use the right words, as I know you know the right word, the difference between improv and ad-lib. That show is entirely improvised. However, the show is very intricately plotted out so that it is like reading a short story, and then you go improvise what the dialogue is. But it is very detailed. Larry knows exactly what he wants. So, for instance, in the scene, let's say where I got the turkey sandwiches, is that Cheryl comes in and says they're having turkey for dinner. Andy already had turkey for lunch, and then they start talking about the difference between New York Chinese food and L.A. Chinese food, and why are people so down on L.A. Chinese food when it's just as good as New York? And then we start talking about going house hunting and going, on Sundays you want to go, and that's in the script. How is it done dialogue-wise? Because you do it, you improvise it, and if somebody brings up something, you have a conversation and you react, and that's all it is. But it's very intricately done. So
you get a script beforehand of what basically the bullet points are. Not a script.
Yes, not a script.
But a storyline.
I got an 18, not even a storyline, an 18-page detailed short story, a scenario. That's what they're called. I mentioned earlier the name Roger Bowen. Do you know who Roger Bowen is?
Mm-mm.
Roger Bowen played Henry in the movie MASH. Remember the movie MASH?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. The role that McLean Stevenson played, Henry, was played by Roger Bowen. Okay. Roger Bowen used to be at Second City, and I know these things because I read Something Wonderful right away. He used to be in Europe, and he would send scenarios to Second City to act out in Chicago while he was in Europe. And that is, in essence, what Larry David does. He writes scenarios. He writes short stories, scenarios that are detailed, but not a script. And when you go to the set and you have the cover sheet, which is, cameraman, who's working, what scenes you're doing that day, the call sheet. Attached to that is the pages that are from the scenario, so that you're not reading lines, but you're reading exactly what's going to happen in each scene that they film that day. The Coen brothers will give you the illustrations, the storyboard of what they're shooting that day, which I thought was great. I thought that was wonderful, that you saw exactly what was going to be shot and what the pictures looked like, along with the script.
So when you're getting the scenarios from Curb, and you've gotten them before, you've read them, they've marinated. Do you have lines you want to say, or things you're thinking of, or to add to the
Between
day?
you, me, and the lamppost and this
Yeah.
podcast, yes, those lines usually don't work.
Mm-hmm.
You're writing jokes, and Larry will just, maybe a few things that he liked. I do try and think ahead. Sometimes it's not the best thing. Sometimes it is pretty good. In my head, they're very funny. Sometimes they're not as funny as I think that they are. And sometimes they just come out with stuff that I remember my friend Sandy Chaplin used to call, after school when you had rehearsal for the play, it was play practice. And I always thought that was the funniest thing. So I called it play practice. When I talk about Larry going to work, I go, "Oh, what do you have, play practice?" That just made me laugh.
I love the idea that it's just like a yoga practice. You're just practicing,
Yeah, you're practicing. I also use the name when his, you remember the episode where his mother dies, and I say Aunt Lolly looked beautiful that day, and he goes, he said, "Do me a favor, don't say Aunt Lolly." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Well, I have an Aunt Lolly." Well, I have an Aunt Lolly, and I wanted her name. He has an Aunt Lolly, and he didn't want her name. So that
Wow.
made me laugh. He's unusual with that. And how I would end every take, and I was serious about this, because I always want to please. That's a bad thing about me, and a bad thing about my acting is that my insecurity. I want to get confirmation I'm doing well. When I finished a scene, when we took a take, and these were the words I would use: "Is that what you wanted? Is that what you want? Was that? I always, with every take, I would say, we would finish, and I go to turn to Larry and I go, "Is that what you want?" Because he's the brilliant one. And here's a sort of a funny story, and I've told him this a few times, but I will tell you'll know when this was by the end of the story. I'm playing golf at Brookside Country Club, which is Brookside Golf Course, which is a public course over by the Rose Bowl. And there happens to be one hole where there's a par 3 that's always backed up, like the 14th hole or something. And so I go up there, and Larry is waiting to hit. And I recognize him, and I go, I talk to him. I say, "How you doing?" And I sort of knew him. Okay, this point is not going to show off the story, but this is a funny story. I go, "So what are you doing now?" And he goes, I go, "Are you working?" He goes, Yeah. I got this pilot over at NBC. And I go, "Oh, yeah?" He goes, "Yeah, I wrote it with Jerry Seinfeld. And we're going to be making it." And anybody who tells me that they're writing pilot, you just go, yeah. So remember, Seinfeld wasn't Seinfeld then. And I was as condescending to him as anybody could possibly be, like, yeah. You and 10,000 other have a pilot. And he was talking about Seinfeld. But then later on, I was playing golf with him, and I asked him if he was a chess prodigy when he was young, because he thinks 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And so, for instance, at the beginning of a show, he will refer to what happened at the beginning and tie it up at the end. And he has 3 concurrent, when he was writing Seinfeld, there were 3 concurrent plot lines going on, all in the same episode. Now, Newhart, in the Newhart show, he would have 2 plot lines going on, but they never intersected. Larry has 2 or 3, and they always intertwine and have an effect on each other, which astounded me. And I didn't understand it, but that's how he thinks. And it's just, if you look at this last season, that Latte Larry's was going to burn down? Did he know that at the beginning? And that the woman who accuses him of being a sexual predator was going to marry the guy next door, whatever is, who had the Mocha Joe. Not only is she going to marry him, they're going to move in and they're going to live and annoy him by living next door by making a lot of noise. Could he know that when he first had the idea of the Spite store? I don't know. It astounds me. He's astounding that way, that he ties it all together. It's not unto itself. It's crazy how good it is. He's so good.
When you're shooting those takes, how long do they last? Does he just say action, the camera goes for a while?
He doesn't say action. He never says action. The director. Okay. There's a director there.
I see.
With cameras placed in different places. I jokingly, but I really said it, I said, I didn't think I was that funny this season. I just remember not being that funny. The woman playing my wife, oh my God, was she great. She was fantastic. I was fine. They cut around me. I say they cut around me. I was terrific. Believe me, while we were shooting, I wasn't that terrific. They were able to edit a funny performance by me, and that's what they do. You get. There are some days where you leave the set saying that was fantastic, and all they use is 8 seconds of what you did, or 20 seconds. And I knew that when I was doing the thing with the turkey or with the crispy onions or something like that, I knew that was funny. That I was part of a funny part of the story. Here, I didn't have so much, but I do lend myself to being funny, or adding on to a funny story, and so therefore I come off very well. But you are. I always joke about this, especially on Seinfeld. You are simply parsley on a plate of meat potatoes. I make it a little colorful. I fill up the plate a little bit, but the meat and potatoes are left to others. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Jeff Garlin.
But what a gift! What a gift!
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
a big fan
you
of
need Jeff Garlin as well from Second City, and I want someone to eat cheese with. How did you guys become friends, you and Jeff?
If it could have been you, much less it just happened to be him. He and I could see it being you easily. He worked in the box office. He's got an outsized personality like you. He's got an ego just like yours, and we used to talk about improv, and he ingratiated himself to me and Dan Castellaneta, and we used to go out for soup at Jeff's Laugh-In and just stay up till all hours talking about improv and talking about things, usually about improv. And we would gab. We were conversationalists. And he just happened to be there at the time, a year or 2 or 3 earlier than you, and was you. I'm sure you became friends with many people on main stage, much less the people that you were working with. He happened to be one of those who made friends with me. I liked him. He's certainly funny. Even then, he could dominate a conversation. He's a monster now, but he could dominate a conversation even back then. So,
but he was in the box office?
I think he worked the box office. Yeah, didn't he work the box office? He was an usher. Oh yeah. Yeah, he worked at Second City. Right. They truly worked at Second City. And remember, he was a tough one, because to improvise with him and his style of humor and taking over a stage is not as it's not as give and take as most people are. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think the thing about Second City is, and if you're in Chicago, it's almost like a liberal arts education where you're drawn to it and you do it. And then later you find out, oh, I actually want to make films, or I want to be a stand-up, or I want to be on a sitcom, But
that's interesting.
But Second City is what you got. So you do it, right? And you get up there and you try improv. And then little by little you realize, I like improv, but my specialty is this.
That's right.
And that's what
But I
happens
will
when
say
you
this:
have.
it's the sad person who thinks that improv is what they can live with for the rest of their lives. In my opinion, improv is a tool. Always has been a tool. And that's just what it is. It makes you better at being an actor. It makes you better at being a stand-up. It makes you better at being a public speaker. Whatever it is a tool. But to live on improv as just improv is I don't think is a healthy place. You are lucky in that you were able to turn improv not into just improv, but a place to learn how to become an improviser, get a school together, create a community. I think you used improv as a tool, and I think that's a healthy thing. I think there was a guy named Larry Coben. Do you know that name?
Yes.
Larry Coben. A funny joke that Bernie said, I think when we were celebrating his 65th anniversary, Larry Coben stood up and gave a toast saying, Bernie, you once said that being at Second City, I'd be doing the best work of my life. Little did I know it would be the only work of my life. But there are people who get trapped into the glories of what Second City was and keep wanting to be improvisers. I think Jeff and Jane are a little bit victims of that. And I can name some others and who are not even as successful as Jeff and Jane, because they're certainly successful as actors and have put up a school and are teaching and even have a theater. But there are people who hold on to the glories that are Second City and don't learn from them. Like you said, I'll make films. One other thing about our company, and we were very, very talented people and very smart people, we waited by the phones for jobs, as opposed to some of the generations after, like Tina Fey, Colbert, Steve Carell, Paul Dinello. They went out and they created the work. Amy Sedaris, they worked hard. They did not wait by the phone. They were proactive with their careers. And they had, Exit 78 or 56 or whatever it was. And then they did Strangers with Candy. They all were proactive in creating material after Second City. We were not. And I thought that was a very interesting thing.
Now, did those folks, they obviously came after you, but you became familiar with Colbert and Sedaris and Dinello through doing stuff on their shows?
I will tell you how I became familiar. First of all, I'm going to say something that's very nice about who I am. I used to go see those shows after I had gone on to LA, and I would come back, and at least once or twice a year I would see the main stage shows. I never saw a bad show, and I certainly never saw bad talent. I would go backstage and I would say, you guys are just great. You're so wonderful. Oh, I wish you such luck out in LA when you leave here. I wish you the best of luck. And in my head, I'm thinking, guys, this is the best you're ever going to do. Hollywood's going to eat you alive. It's such a tough place. I don't think there's a place for you out there. Just know how great you are because you're spectacular. Well, needless to say, they're waving bye-bye as they're flying over my head to L.A. because they became supremely successful. And they must have all been there when I was on main stage. They all knew my stuff. And I was very nice to them, but from my heart, truly, truly from my heart, I could see how talented they were. When I saw their shows, they were brilliant writers and brilliant actors. They were great. They were so great. And every succeeding company after I left was magnificent. Everybody goes, oh, I was at Second City when it was great. No, I came there and it was better than we ever were. And it continued. Have you seen the shows of late? They're fantastic. They're great. I saw this present company in 2 shows. They're magnificent. They're wonderful and challenging and dirty, and they're so smart. They really are.
Would you ever direct a show like at Second City, or do any kind of directing?
No. No, you know what? I could direct a play. One reason why I don't want to be a director is I'm a good armchair director. I can see what other people are doing, and then I go, no, you should do this. This is how you should make this. So I might be able to co-direct after a while, but especially with Second City, you got to have ideas of how to make it better. I don't know whether I could. Maybe I could. And I don't direct a movie or certainly not a play is because a lot of times I hear in my head what it should sound like. Like I do with Chris Walken and Michael J. Fox. I'm worried that I will suppress what is actually a better performance because I heard it a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm afraid, and I am especially afraid that I'll give them direction by line reading, which I don't mind for me. Somebody can give me a line reading, and I can say, I hear what you're saying, but I don't really agree with that, or, oh my God, I never thought of that. Thank you very much. So I'm pretty liberal. I know now that I'm a good actor, so I don't mind getting a line reading. And like I've always said, I love direction. Give me direction. Just let me have the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't think that's really the right choice. I don't agree with that. And I love when I'm rehearsing for a play. You can't do this with the TV because of the time limits. But arguing and saying no, he would never do that. That's I don't like that choice. It's the best thing in the world. It's great. I love doing that.
What's in the pipe for you after this virus and after this all lifts? What will life look like for you?
There are so many variables in that. First of all, where is the work? But I'll go anywhere for the work. Is there work for me? I'm no longer a spring chicken. People say they know what I can do and they don't want me, but when I audition and say, no, I can do this, I hope I get a TV series. It's what I really, really want right now. I just the work, and when it becomes available, I'll do it because I love it. But who knows I don't know whether this theater is going to exist for another 2 years. I don't know whether or not I want to share an armrest in a theater, in a movie theater or a Broadway theater, with somebody who could have a virus. You know, I mean, I believe in the 6 foot, the distancing. And somebody said it should not be called social distancing because we shouldn't be socially distant. We should have conversations like this and talk. What we should do is physical distancing. We should not be close to one another right now because, quote unquote, you can catch a cold. You can catch your death of cold right now. And it's what we shouldn't be doing. And did I say it here? Because I had an interview this morning, and I'm like confusing whether or not I said this. But did I say this about the soldiers fighting in the battle on this one?
Yeah.
I truly do believe it. Work hard, and life is tough right now. So accept it's tough. We're at war. He says he's a president of war. Well, he's not acting that way. We should act like soldiers. We should be soldiers, and we should give our lives for the sake of our country, if not for the sake of our fellow man, by killing him. You want to hear a horror? This is a great showbiz story. There was an actress named Linda Darnell. She was beautiful actress. And she gave up showbiz because she had a son who was mentally challenged. He was born mentally challenged, and she gave up her life, her career, to take care of her son. So one day, she meets this woman who says, Linda Darnell's doing a signing or whatever it is, and she goes, it's a pleasure to meet you. And the woman says, well, I have to admit something. I've met you before. And Linda Darnell goes, oh, really? Where? She goes, well, I was in the Army, and we were at the Hollywood Canteen, and you were at the Hollywood Canteen that night. And I had German measles, but I loved you so much I couldn't stay away. I had to come to the Hollywood Canteen and shake your hand and meet you. She found the woman who gave her the German measles while she was pregnant and affected her son. Isn't that a horrifying story?
Wow.
Yeah. So that story has always haunted me. I think, oh my God, what would I feel like? What if I met the woman who caused my son to be the way that he is and not healthy? And how would I feel if that were that woman? Who knows whether or not she ever was made aware of it? But what if I go outside? I have it. I'm asymptomatic, but I have the virus, and I meet somebody, and I'm responsible for their death. How could I live with myself that way? I couldn't. You know? So I'm looking at it like that. I can't be responsible for killing somebody, you know, knowingly or unknowingly. So I stay inside.
So you stay inside. You're exercising inside, because you say the only thing you're doing right now is the 1 hour a day of exercise.
Yes, and I'm eating.
And you're eating. And what kind of exercise are you doing at your house?
Okay, let me tell you this. If this pandemic never happened, I would be the worst for it, because I go to the gym. I know I don't look it, but I go to the gym a lot. And I go and I lift weights. And I do the elliptical and blah, blah, blah. You do the elliptical every day, or you do the rowing machine, and then you lift weights. When was the last time you did a deep knee bend? When was the last time you did deep knee bends for a minute? Or did burpees? Or did any of that stretching stuff? I never did it. I don't like it. But I don't have a gym in my home. I have 8-pound weights and 15-pound weights. And I got this exercise program online. I do it. And I know look, if I die soon, I'll look better than ever, because I'm doing all of these things. I'm stretching. I'm doing exercises that I didn't know my body could or should be doing. You know what? I knew I should be doing them. I didn't want to do them. Now it's my only choice, and that's what I do. I'll probably become a better golfer because of it, because I'm doing stretching and moving my body in ways that are great for my body and great for my health, that I haven't done in 40 years. So I do that.
That's the happy accidents, you know, of this thing, of the virus, of the silver linings.
You got to turn this pimple into a beauty mark somehow.
Yeah.
You call friends, like I said, I make phone calls. I go on Zoom. I'm seeing people. You never would have talked to me like this had this pandemic happened. I love talking like this. I wish it wasn't just on a podcast. Call me anytime. Zoom me. And we're doing this over the phone. Give me a FaceTime. I much prefer FaceTime. I look at people. When I tweet, they don't get my inflection. They don't know that that's sarcastic. When I send an email, I try and tell a joke in it, and it's taken the wrong way. But let me do it in person, and you'll say. Or if they come back with a line, I can say, no, that was meant as a joke. I can make myself much clearer then.
Well, it's interesting. My wife said something yesterday. She said after the quarantine is over, there'll be two kinds of people. There'll be people who used this time and came out better for it, and there'll be people who didn't use the time and came out worse for it. And
I agree with your right. Yes.
And so something like this podcast, Is This a Bad Time to Talk, was born out of I have to be able to, when this time is over, because I could and most likely will lose 3 or 4 of the businesses. It's just landlords and the amount that will be owed, they just don't see past. Don't worry about rent. They don't live in that world. So I have to think about, for myself, what does the next chapter look like? And look, I mean, we've talked for almost 2 hours, and for me, it's been effortless because it's just been fun. It's been like, you know, I love to like sit at the learning tree and just listen, and then when it's done, have some ideas for the person I've talked to. Here's a couple of thoughts for you based on what we talked about, which I don't think would have happened if it were for, like I said, my own sense of martyrdom would have been like, I don't want to bother Richard. He's busy. He's got a family. He's got a career. I don't want to make him come to Simple Studios to do a podcast or ask of his time, you know, for whatever reason. You know, I'm sure you would. But, you know, And I felt the same way about the other people I talked to, that if it weren't for this pandemic, I wouldn't have reached out. I mean, I'm talking to Rachel Dratch, who her and I were office mates at SNL next week, you know. And
Yeah.
Michael Shannon, the great actor
You're
Michael
very,
Shannon.
very lucky. Oh, Michael Shannon. Please tell him hello. First of all, what a great actor, but we all know that. But what a great improviser, and we didn't all know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I mean, I look forward to it.
Yeah. Oh, and such a good guy. He's such a good man. Fred, I did not know you knew him that long.
He's my best man at my wedding. Fred, my best man.
I had no idea. No
Yeah.
idea. How did you know? You went to school together?
We were in the same fraternity. I met Fred when I was 17 in the summer of '86. So I've known Fred since, 34 years.
I didn't know that.
But again, it's one of those things where I live in this fraternity for the summer. They're renting out rooms. He's already in the fraternity, and I just needed a cheap room to live in to go to summer school, and boom, fast friends.
Oh,
and we were
such a good actor, such a good man.
Yeah,
funny.
Really is.
He's great.
And we were going to go to Jazz Fest, and when this first began, I was in denial, and I was like, well, let's wait, Fred. We don't know, it's still possible. And then all of a sudden it became real that Jazz Fest was not going to happen this year.
Isn't it amazing, all the things that are not going to happen?
Yeah. I was supposed to go to Copenhagen
with
Rosowski, and I were going to go to Copenhagen, Dave Rosowski, for this Copenhagen International Improv Festival, the 20th anniversary, and didn't happen. Maybe next year.
Wow.
Here's some thoughts for you. I'll give you a few thoughts, all right? And I've written down some thoughts. I think, a book of showbiz stories by you would be amazing. A fun book, whether it's an e-book, whether it's a book for your kids and your friends and your family. But I would start by just writing down, the bullet points. Like the story you just told of the woman story you just told?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With the measles?
I understand what you're saying. I had the same conversation about 5 days ago with somebody else who has started a podcast, but I was supposed to do, this is one of the things I was supposed to do, is a live podcast to raise money for his theater company, but Jeffrey Tambor has a podcast. But we had to cancel that because we were supposed to do it live. So he's a friend, so I talked to him, and I tell stories like this, and he goes, you should really write all of this down. And I go, no. And then I said, maybe it's a bathroom book. Little anecdotes, short chapters that you read only when you're in the bathroom.
I have a publishing house called Poop House Publications. They're books meant to be read while you're taking a poop, flying, or at the beach. Yeah, it's just something where I was like, look, I can't compete with the exceptional. I'm not exceptional, or the extraordinary. I'm not. I'm an ordinary guy. But maybe I can write books for the guy who wants to get the phone out of his hand while he's taking a dump. He just wants
good
to,
idea.
Here's a fun little, one chapter is each story is, the amount of time it takes to sit down for a couple, 2-3 minutes.
You are Ralph Kramden with success, but one of them will hit big time. One of these ideas, I got this idea. You do think out of the box. I had no idea that you came to this country without a family, everything like that. Which, of course, in my Oliver Twist imagination, that's why you're scrappy. That's why you keep going.
Well, no, I mean, my mother and father came. It was my mother and father and I. The three of us came when I was 9 months old. But everybody else.
But it must have been very difficult. Yeah.
I didn't.
So difficult. You had to become scrappy. That's the old word. Like a volleyball kid. And
but if you could if you can open up in your phone a note, and in the notes just write, kind showbiz stories, right? And then each time you think of one, here's another one, just dash and the title, the bullet, right? And then when you get time, you type it out on your phone for me, and you just go, here's another story I thought of. And when you get to 50 or 100, then maybe it's time to start editing them in a Google Doc. All right?
You're very right.
All right, here's another one. Remind me of the gentleman's name who told you should try acting, your father's friend.
Steve Holzman.
Steve Holzman. Okay, perfect. So Steve Holzman comes to this is a sitcom for you, or whatever you want to call it. So you're an attorney in New York, and you're going through an existential crisis. And all of a sudden, a young new partner in the firm fires you, right? And then Steve Holzman calls you and says, your father has passed. You need to come back to Princeton to take over the jewelry shop. And the show is called, Is That What You Want? So it's basically you getting to be you if things had gone differently. You went to law school. You never did the acting thing. You end up going back to take over the shop, to take care of Princeton, your ma, the store. You get into community theater there. And all of a sudden, this whole new life kind of comes to you as a gift, and it becomes a way to get you out of this existential crisis where you're happier than you've ever been in your life. I think that would be a really nice vehicle for you, you know.
All right, I'm going to tell you a sort of an offshoot of that, which was talked about. We went and we tried to pitch this, and I guess it's because it's copyrighted. I couldn't talk about it, but there was an idea about a guy very unhappily married. His children, finally, the last one goes off, gets married. His daughters are out of the house, are out of college. He's not happy with his wife. He's doing exactly what you're saying, a lawyer or a Wall Street guy. He always wanted to be a baseball announcer. Just what he wanted to do. He would sit at home at night watching baseball games and into a tape recorder or would announce games, would literally as if he were in the booth. He sends them off to some AAA team, farm team out in North Carolina, and they have the tapes, and he becomes this New Yorker, urban guy, moves out to North Carolina to become the baseball announcer for their farm team.
That's a beautiful story, too.
Isn't that a good story?
Did it not go to pilot?
Well,
it didn't get picked up.
It did not get. Couldn't interest anybody in anything. No. It's a good idea. I would still love to do it. I have a few of those ideas.
You mentioned you do corporate workshops sometimes?
No, not corporate
you don't.
workshops. No. Although I'd like to. I could. I've done lectures. People will either have me at a school. I've done it on a cruise ship once in exchange for admission to take my family on a cruise. I've done it at various places. It's fun.
Because,
I did it recently. Go ahead.
The Pit has a big corporate wing of what we do, Pit Corporate. So I can basically.
did not know that.
Yes, I can figure out a way where you could be doing, corporate workshops where you get to have Richard Kind and you work, with the Pit. We figure all the rest of that out. But I'm happy to discuss that.
I love it.
Okay, wonderful. It's done.
I would love it when this is all over.
If you do the ad game and you like the ad game and you like Pet Peeve Rant and you like other exercises that, people who've never done improv can do and get like a feeling of like, oh, this is fun, I'm happy to be a catalyst for that.
I'd be great for that. I would be, Ali, I'd be so good. That would be a wonderful thing.
Okay.
Wonderful thing. Elemental games that I think that can help. I remember so many people took classes at Second City not to be an actor, but to get better at public speaking, or just to, Brandon Tartikoff being the most famous one. That's where he met George Wendt and things like that. But how to be better at business. I'd be great at that. I'd be wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yeah. That is something when we're out of this hellhole that we're in. Tell me what you're doing other than this.
Well, right now, this has been a big thing. I have daddy duty, so I pick up our caretaker in the morning who watches our younger daughter, Olivia. So I go drive to Washington Heights. I pick her up. I bring her. I drop her off. And then the rest of the day until 3 o'clock, I've got to find stuff to do because usually I'm my daughter's PE teacher. So my youngest daughter, I teach PE to her. That's one of my jobs. And then after that, I come home with her, I help make dinner, and then I clean up after dinner, and then my older daughter and I go to my parents' studio where we're staying. while my wife and youngest daughter stay at our apartment. And then throughout the days, I try to exercise. I do a lot of walking. I go check on the businesses. I'm trying to get loans and grants for the businesses. I'm in contact with landlords. And then, like I said, this podcast or phone call, whatever you want to call it, came out of that. And trying to figure out for myself.
And how successful are you at keeping physical distance?
Well, I mean, I keep a mask on. And I steer clear of people, but I do have to be out and about because, there's 4 businesses of which 2 of them could be looted, so I have to go check on them periodically. And, it's interesting because I'm out there walking and there's various degrees of no mask, goggles, I've seen some mask shaming, but what you're really seeing in New York, I don't think anybody's talking about this part of it, is that it basically feels like a bomb has detonated, and we don't know where the blast is, but the blast radius is expansive because there's way more homeless people on the streets, way more mentally ill people, way more people asking for money, but in an aggressive way because they're hungry. Because the guy who used to maybe get somebody's leftovers from a nice Smith & Wollensky dinner, he's not getting leftovers now. The guy who might get a couple, $2, $3, money from a bartender or waiter who had a good night is not getting anymore. So, I also go to NYU Langone periodically to, applaud the frontliners because it's right by my house. It's a nice after dinner walk. Go there, applaud. It's like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, and then I walk back. And in that walk, you just see how many people are out of sorts, on the street.
Yeah, I don't walk as much as you do, not nearly as much as you do. And I'm on the Upper West Side, of which there aren't as many homeless. But I am worried about the homeless and the violence that might come when we come out of our houses. I just don't know if the crime is going to increase.
Well, the reason
I sort of don't blame them.
Well, the reason our caretaker, our nanny, didn't want to she was like, I can't come down anymore. And my wife said, why? She goes, because the subways are filled with homeless people and it's getting dangerous and precarious for me. And I'm afraid of not only getting sick, but I'm also afraid of somebody doing something to me. So then my wife was like, you got a new job. You're also the bus driver. You're the PE teacher and you're the lunch lady for dinner.
Yeah.
So that's how I can help. And then we have weekly Zoom meetings at once a week, Tuesdays at 1:00. The core staff that we still have, who's working remotely part-time, we talk.
Very good. That what she said about the subways. I'm not going in the subway because of who knows what's in there. I did not know that the homeless are there, and I can well imagine it must be like a traveling hotel. But I am worried about that when this is all over. Not necessarily the homeless. I'm talking about people who make it a destination because they are not. They don't have money. They don't have food, and they're coming down and may take it violently. They may get money violently, and I don't know. I think New York could go back to what it was in the 60s and the 70s, and I'm scared of that.
Well, I mean, you got to find a way to provide these people with, water, food, showers, laundry services, shelters. It's just, and the thing about the shelters are they don't want to go there because they could also get sick, and if they get sick, it's that's it. It's not good. And they also don't want to probably go there because probably to some degree the things that happen to them that, put them where they are happen indoors, and, abuse both physically, emotionally, or sexually happen inside. So they don't want to be inside. They prefer being outside because they don't want to be cornered by someone. That's the other. There's a lot of secondary stuff happening because of the virus where they say domestic abuse is increasing, child molestation is increasing, child abuse is increasing because you're stuck in these houses and these people, liquor stores are doing better business than ever. People are still buying liquor and they're going home and they're getting drunk and then they're being abusive. So, it's one of those things that there's secondary effects. Like one of the things they said is after 9/11, People took fewer planes and drove more, but in that year after 9/11, there were roughly somewhere around 3,000 more fatalities due to car accidents. So you can't ever escape the secondary, effect of something, because you're playing with Mother Nature, and you're playing with society, and engineering something in a way. There's other things that are just it's whack-a-mole. Society is whack-a-mole.
Yeah. These are things that I have thought about, and you're right. But that's very interesting that 3,000 more accidents happened after 9/11. That is an astounding fact. Those are one of those things where you've read the book Outliers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, where things happen. I think it's Outliers in the book, where things happen that you don't necessarily think about. But the most interesting thing is that I thought the greatest statistic out of that is crime went down like after the 1970s because abortion had become legalized, and therefore more children were not born out of wedlock, and led to a life of crime because there weren't as many people who were potential criminals. If you know what I mean.
Right. I mean, you have also China. China had the one-child policy. So right now they say China has about 30 million men of marrying age with nobody for them to marry, because they thought back in the 60s and 70s they could engineer a society that said you can only have one child, and that wouldn't lead families to basically make sure that child was male through whatever means.
Yeah.
And so they're dealing with that now. Yeah.
Yeah. Those they're secondary things. I don't think got to think like a detective to figure out what the future's going to bring. But I did think about the crime. So there we go.
It's gone up in Chicago. They say, crime has gone down kind of nationally in a way, but shootings and murders in Chicago have gone up, and addiction has gone up because, people have been pushed to a place.
Addiction doesn't surprise me. That's going to be a tough one too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I could talk to you for another couple hours, and I may just call you someday just to talk again.
I'd love it. Let's have a three-way. Let's do it, Fred, and maybe Matt, and just we'll talk about. I know we didn't talk about politics here, but I'll send you some 2 articles that really had an effect.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, and I look forward to getting coffee with you someday, and
I look forward to it.
And seeing you in the real world again. And I want to think about some of the stuff we talked about and see if I can put together some win-win ideas. Because again, I went from being able to have a pretty amazing life for 18 years, and now within 90 days could be starting from scratch.
I know.
But that's all right. Hey, look, the world that's life, and I'm still one of the lucky ones.
Yeah. Oh, we are. We have our children. We have our health. And we have smarts about us. Yes, we're nice. We're good people. I really believe that. I believe we're good people.
Richard, I thank you for your time, man. I can't believe how lucky I am to be able to have this long, fun conversation with you.
I hope it was fun.
I figure out how to. Oh, are you kidding me?
I hope it was fun.
It flew by, Richard. I have so many other questions to ask. Look, at the end of the day, I feel, and I hope I'm right in this, I'm a fan and a friend, so I feel so lucky to be able to talk to you.
No, you're very nice. Love you, Ali.
I love you too, Richard.
All righty. Buddy,
take care, buddy. Stay healthy.
Stay safe. Yeah.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Wow. I just got to talk to Richard Kind for almost a couple of hours. It did cut out once due to, I don't know, some glitch in either the Tape-A-Call app or something. But Richard Kind is the real deal. I mean, he is comedy royalty, and he will go down in history comedically as one of the funniest people, iconic level funny, both on stage, in film, and in television, and in person. And it's funny because really, Richard and I became friends and friendly through a card game that I play, that I got invited to through, I think, Fred Weller. And then, there were other great guys at that card game, Ted and Yaz and Slavens and Ballard and Marcy and Esposito and, so many nice guys that we played cards with. And, the secondary effects of that are that I get to call someone like Richard Kind and talk for a couple of hours. So I hope it recorded, as always. I hope I'm able to figure out how to post this so people can listen to it, because it was like a master class. It was a master class in acting. We are playing pretend, as simple as that. We are playing pretend. The showbiz stories, so many amazing things, and learning how Curb was done, and all the connections to hear Rosowski's name and Jeff Garland's name, names like Danilo and Sedaris and Colbert again, and just to listen to his absolute pure love of theater. And I honestly don't know what the future theater holds, what that will look like for us, who have, I would say, devoted our lives to it. But time will tell. So I bid you adieu, and I say sweet dreams, or good night, or good morning, or good afternoon. I hope this finds you healthy. If you're not healthy, I hope you get healthy. And once you get healthy, I hope you stay healthy and appreciate your health. Because being able to pull a deep breath right now is worth all the money in the world, to be able to take a deep breath and have gratitude around that deep breath and your health. So until we meet again in the real world, so long.
Thanks for listening to Global Comedy Studios. Is this a bad time to talk? Stay tuned for more.